Welcome everybody. On today's episode, we are going to talk about understanding chartered accounting. Today's episode 1. So we're going to be exploring this profession of being a chartered accountant, left, right, and center. We're going to talk about what you need to do to be a chartered accountant. What is the journey? What is the qualification that you need to get? And how do you get that qualification? We're going to be looking at the career opportunities that you'll have once you're a chartered accountant, and we're going to be looking at the salary ranges that chartered accountants make in different economies and globally. So today let's start off the first episode, which is how do you become a chartered accountant? Now, we should understand that being a chartered accountant means you're becoming a professional accountant. And as you become a professional accountant, you need to be a member of a professional body. So there's no chartered accountant who is not a member of a professional body that regulates accountants. Just like you can't be a doctor without being a member of a professional body that regulates doctors, because dealing with money is as critical as dealing with life. Just like doctors have to register and be accredited and be monitored by a professional body that ensures that they take care of patients in the most professional manner possible, we also have a body that looks after accountants to make sure that they take care of the monies of the organizations that they work for in the best possible manner. So now, to be a professional accountant, you can either follow one of two routes. That is, you can either follow the professional route or the academic route. But for today's episode, we'll be focusing mainly on the professional route. But whichever route you follow, ultimately the ultimate qualification is chartered accounting. So in the later episode, we'll look at the professional route the academic route in detail. But for today, we'll be looking at the professional route. Now, like I said, you have to be a member of a professional body to be a chartered accountant. So if you follow the professional route, just when you start your studies, from the first day you start studying your studies towards being a chartered accountant, you have to be a registered student of a professional body. Now, every country has a regulatory body that regulates accountants. Like in my country, we have what we call Lesotho Institute of Accountants. It's actually a statutory body that is established by an act of parliament to regulate accountants, to make sure that accountants get proper education, to make sure that accountants observe the proper professional standards, and accountants uphold the public interest. Because remember, these organizations that accountants will be running and will be looking after their monies for will be the investments of people's pensions, will be the investments of people's money. And so it has to be regulated. Otherwise, people will go rogue. People will do things that, when people hold a lot of money, a lot of ideas come through. So we need to make sure that when you're an accountant, when a chartered accountant, you observe the right principles and can trust with that responsibility, the monies of other people. So now, just from being and registering as a student, you must be a member of the professional body right away under the professional route. That therefore means that all you're going to have to do now is find a local body in your country that regulates accountants and find them what you need to do to be an accountant, what are the entry requirements and everything. Then you'll register as a member, a student member, and some organizations and some local bodies will find that the education required to be a professional accountant keeps on evolving. In other words, what was important for accountants 10 years ago has drastically changed to what is important to accountants today because of things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, technologies taking things, cryptocurrency, and all these things, which were not there some 20 years ago, now they are here. So it means education has to keep on evolving. So you'll find that the local bodies, because of this evolving need in the education of accountants, instead of themselves providing the education locally, they prefer to be affiliated or adopt education offered internationally by bodies that offer education for accountants globally, that are able to evolve with the evolving needs for the education of an accountant. So like in my country, we have the Institute of Accountants, which is a local body, and for you to be an accountant, you have to really register with the Institute of Accountants. But what they have done is, instead of having their own education for accountants, they have actually partnered with the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, ACCA, based in the UK. And then what we do here is that we study the ACCA qualification, the ACCA education is what we study. And then once you have studied that, then we're going to come locally and complete the rest of our requirements to be a chartered accountant locally. So that is basically what you do. It's either going to have one body locally do his education, do everything itself, or it will partner with an international body that will actually provide education and other things, and then they will do the rest of the part themselves. So you'll find that as a student you have to then register, like in our case, in my country, you have to register with two organizations. You have to register with the Institute of Accountants and ACCA at the same time before you can even start your studies. Then what is going to happen is that once you have registered, you get your student number, you'll become a student, then you can start your studies. But in other countries, you just have to register with the local body and you're covered. So you have to understand what happens in your country before you get started. Do your research before you get started and understand what works in your country. Now, what happens therefore is that to be a chartered accountant, you don't only need education. You need three things to be a chartered accountant. The first thing that you need is education, of course. You need to have the body of knowledge required of an accountant. You need to know what accountants do in the workplace. And remember, people confuse chartered accounting with financial accounting, which is where basically we are dealing with purely accounting and accounting related issues. In chartered accounting, you are dealing with commerce. You are doing accounting, but also you are dealing with commerce, because you are going to be responsible for running the organization's finances. So you need to be able to understand what happens in human resources. You need to be able to understand what happens in HR. You need to be able to understand what happens in the legal department. You need to have an overall idea of how the organization as a whole works. So it means you're not only going to be doing accounting, but you're going to be doing everything that an administrator, that somebody who is going to be senior in the organization has to know about the organization. Therefore, you're going to have to go do your education, and when you get the education, understand that you have a range of choices as to how you want to approach your studies. You can either go to a tuition provider, a college, a school, a university that offers that particular professional qualification that you are pursuing, the chartered accounting qualification. You can do it at a college. So when you go to the college, make sure that you go to a college that is accredited by the local body in your country that actually awards chartered accounting certificates. So you want to go to an accredited body. With ACCA, you have two types of accredited institutions. You have those that have a gold status and those that have platinum accreditation status. Of course, platinum is the highest accreditation you can get, and gold is a little bit lower, but it's still a good institution. So ACCA has its own criteria for awarding accreditations, who gets gold and who gets platinum. Ideally, you want to go to a platinum institution, but if you can't get hold of that, you can go to a gold institution. But remember, it's not only that to be a chartered accountant, you have to go to college. You still have an option to either getting yourself a private tutor. So there are people who are not necessarily accredited, but who still provide what? Who still provide the education that you need to be a chartered accountant. So you can get somebody who has good, say, in a particular paper to help with that particular paper, or you can actually find people around who have done the qualification, who are able to teach you, who are able to show you what you need to do, and they can tutor you privately without necessarily going to college. Because maybe you're doing this thing, you want to pursue this qualification, and you don't have time to actually go full time to school, or you are not maybe available during the day, you want to do it in the evenings. So you can get private tutors to help you get the education you need to be a chartered accountant. Now, another alternative, of course, is if you cannot afford the private tutors, you cannot, and you don't have time to go to college, and you cannot afford college, just get the study materials and study it on your own. Because what is important is you getting the necessary education, not necessarily you going to college. What you need is education. So how you get it, whether you want to do it on your own, self-study, whether you want to get private tutors, whether you want to go to accredited tuition providers, it's your choice. You know what will work for you, or decide at least what will work for you and choose accordingly. Now, on top of this tuition also, there are what we call the study materials. So as you get tuition, you're going to need the resources that will help you to study. There's a wide range of resources online for free, but also there are resources that you need to buy. And the most important ones, of course, is you need the study texts, the books that you're going to read, and the question banks, which is where you're going to practice your practice tests to make sure that you track your knowledge and see if you're progressing or not. So you have to decide, again, the content providers, which are the people who publish these books that you need to get your professional accounting certificate, are also accredited gold or platinum. Just like the tuition providers, and ACCA also grades the material that the content providers provides. You can either have a content provider who provides books and question banks which are gold or platinum accredited. Like always, platinum is the status to go for, but gold is also good. Just look at the prices that the materials go for, look at what you can afford, and pick the necessary material. But also remember, you go online, there's a lot of free materials that you can actually access. In fact, in the description down below, I'm going to leave you a few links into where you can actually get free study materials, free resources from, so that you can actually do your studies at the lowest possible cost. Now, once you have chosen how you want to study, once you have chosen the tuition provider you're going to work with, the next thing that you need to look at is understand how you're going to be certified. Understand the certificates, the process of getting certified. Because unlike an academic qualification where you have to go, say, for full 4 years and doing, say, a marketing degree, and then you can only get a certificate after completing your full 4 years, or maybe you're doing IT, you can only get a certificate after completing your 3 years in college. With chartered accounting, because it's a journey, because we understand that you need to also be able to pay for this, the cost of this education along the way. And sometimes you want to be an accountant, you don't necessarily want to be a chartered accountant, but you want to be an accountant competent enough to do what you have to do. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you realize that accounting is an important aspect of your business and you want to do accounting, but you don't necessarily want to get chartered accounting. You can actually get the knowledge up to a certain level and then get a certain certificate and exit. So what you do is that, or what ACCA does is that, when you're from high school, you get enrolled into what you call Foundation in Accountancy Qualification. Foundations in Accountancy Qualification. So under Foundations in Accountancy Qualification, this is where we're going to do a total of up to 9 papers that you can do over a year. And every time you finish a set of 2 papers, you get a certificate. Because after doing the first 2 papers, for example, you get what we call Introductory Certificate in Accounting. And that Introductory Certificate in Accounting, then, if you're not able to proceed, or maybe that's all you wanted to have to know and get appreciation of accounting without going deeper into the qualification itself. That Introductory Certificate then is what we are going to use to do the basic roles and the basic jobs in accounting. Things like invoicing clients. You can work maybe as an invoicing clerk in an organization. When you sit down, you provide services, you provide the goods and services to the clients, and you invoice those clients. Or you can work as a cashier, collecting payments on behalf of the organization. Or you can work in the receivables department, just making sure that you pursue and document, the records of customers and make sure that you collect the monies on behalf of the organization. So to do such minor roles in accounting, you don't necessarily to be a chartered accountant. You can do that with your first 2 papers that you do with ACCA. So you get certificates incrementally. You don't have to wait for the entire 3-4 years to complete the course for you to get a certificate. So the first certificate, of course, is the Foundation in Accountancy, and the highest certificate you can get under Foundations in Accounting is what we call Certified Accounting Technician Certificate, CAT, Certified Accounting Technician. Now, when you get Certified Accounting Technician, you say you are ready, you can go into the workplace and do, the lower level, accounting jobs without a problem. And then if you want to progress from Certified Accounting Technician, then you will study further and do the skills module papers of ACCA. And then once you do that, you're going to get a certificate in what you call General Accounting. General Accounting. So you'll find that professional bodies don't only have the chartered memberships as the only membership that you can have. You can have membership as a technician accountant, you can have membership as a general accountant, and you can have a membership at the highest level, which is chartered accountant. So you every level of your studies has something that you get given to demonstrate and show the progress that we have achieved so far. Now, with general accounting, of course, for you to be able to get here and do general accounting, it normally takes a year, depending on how fast you can take a year or two, or whichever time period that is suitable for you. Because remember, studying needs to go at your pace. You have to sit down and look at your personal circumstances. Are you working? Are you employed? Are you married? Or what are your circumstances? How much time do you have for studying? Then you have to structure your studies around the time that you have. So maybe you're going to take a year to do general accounting, others will take 2, depending on each and everyone's personal circumstances. But remember, if you go to college, you don't have a choice. You have to go in the speed of what your college says you need to go at. So if you take a year to do it in college, you have to take a year. But if you do it, by self-study or having private tutors, you have a choice of and flexibility of deciding how you want to go about it. So now, to get into general accounting does not necessarily mean that you have to go through the foundations in accountancy first or get certified accounting technician first. Because sometimes some of you will find that you're not straight from high school. Maybe you have a first degree in marketing, a first degree in entrepreneurship, or first degree in, bachelor's degree in accounting, or you have a first degree in something. So you don't necessarily have to go through foundations in accountancy if you already have a certificate or a degree in another field. So when you come in with a degree or certificate elsewhere, we acknowledge, or ACCA at least acknowledges and appreciates the effort you've already taken to get yourself some knowledge, So what they will do is that they will exempt you from doing the foundations in accountancy, and you will do some sort of a bridging course to actually test what you know and to actually determine whether you are actually fit to start in the general accounting category. So we'll take you through what we call knowledge module. This is where you do 3 papers. After doing these 3 papers, then you will proceed and then get into general accounting, the skills module papers. So you'll find that the knowledge module maybe takes 3 months. It will take you between 3 and 6 months. And then after that 3 to 6 months, you'll come and do the 6 papers of general accounting, after which you are done. And then once you are done with general accounting, you will need your general accounting to now enroll for chartered accounting. Now, chartered accounting, you're going to do 4 papers. The first 6 months, maybe, again, remember, I'm just making reference to what is normal, because other people take longer than that and other people lower than that. So the first 6 months, then you'll be doing 2 papers, and then once you pass these 2 papers, then you'll move on to do 2 additional papers. It will be 2 options, 2 last papers out of a choice of 4 papers. Because when you get to the options, when you get to the final level, the final stage of a chartered accounting, you have to specialize. Because, like I said, chartered accounting is broad. We deal with a lot of topics, so you have to pick at least 2 specialty papers that you want to concentrate on once you get to the workplace. So you can either do advanced audit and assurance if you want to do, audit, internal and external audit. You may want to do audit and assurance paper so that you can go and provide assurance. We'll talk about the career opportunities and what with an audit and assurance paper you can do in a later paper when you look at the career prospects of a chartered accountant. But you have a choice of doing audit and assurance if you want to specialize in external audit. You have a choice of doing advanced performance management if you want to be a management accountant, or you can go out and do advanced financial management or advanced taxation. So those are the 4 options we have. You have to pick 2. Again, we'll do a video that guides you in how to best choose 2 out of those 4 particular papers. So that is the education part of things. It will normally take you about 3 years minimum to get through all these 3 stages: foundations, and then general accounting, and finally chartered accounting. But if you already have a degree, it will take you about 2 years to complete the whole thing. Or if you have a certificate, because you don't start up there, you start down here from general accounting onwards. So you find that it will take plus or minus 2 years to complete the entire education. But it doesn't mean once you have got education, once you have got trained as a chartered accountant, you can start calling yourself a chartered accountant. Not yet, because remember, you need 3 things. education, training, and ethics. So once you are done with education, you have to go into the workplace and start putting into practice what you have learned in class. So in order for you to be able to do that, you need to go find a job, an internship, find an employer who can train you in what you have learned, so that you can be able to fulfill what we call the performance objective requirements. This is when you study, you'll see in your study materials, every time you study, what you are studying is actually related to what happens in the workplace. So want to make sure that when you get to the workplace, you're able to apply the knowledge you got in class in the specific tasks that accountants do in the workplace. So there are what we call performance objective requirements that as you do your training, you must fulfill. And once you have met these performance objective requirements, then you can say, yes, you're an accountant, you're competent to actually take on a proper role as an accountant. So now, when you go to look for a job, a training partner that you want to work with, an employer that you want to work with, there are two types of employers that you'll get out there. You'll get the accredited employers or those that are not necessarily accredited. So the accredited employers are those that are working with ACCA or your local professional body to actually train you in the way that the professional body wants you to be trained like. So there will be a formal process of training you once you get there. So you don't have to worry, you don't have to struggle when you get to the workplace, because the employer already knows how they need to train you to actually be able to be competent after the required period of time, which is normally 3 years, because your training is going to take about 3 years at minimum to be complete and for us to call each other accountant. So accredited employers already have a formal process in place so that they know that when you come in the first 6 months, these are the duties you need to do. The second 6 months, after the second year, the third year, this is what you need to do, after which we'll say you're a complete accountant. So that's if you're working for an accredited employer, formal process is already in place for you. So all you need to do is state to ACCA or your local professional body, show them that you're employed by an accredited employer, and also give proof that you have worked with the accredited employer for 3 years. Then you'll be fine, they'll be happy with that. But if you are not working for an accredited employer, like many of the students maybe are not able to get accredited employers, because accredited employers, you find that they're big banks, they're the big four audit firms or the local audit firms. So you find that if you're not working for the audit firms, you're not working for the management consulting firms, you're not working for the big corporations, maybe you're working for a small organization and now it's not necessarily accredited. How do you then use that experience you're getting to fulfill your training requirements to be a chartered accountant? You're going to need two things in order for you to be able to fulfill the training requirement of your qualification and be a chartered accountant. So the two things you're going to need, the first one is that when you get to workplace, when you get to your work, the first thing that you need to do is find someone who is senior to you, who understands accounting, who you can appoint as what we call a workplace mentor. This is someone who understands accounting. This is someone who can actually testify when you say I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in line with the performance objective requirements. They can actually say yes, I agree, I'm happy, this person has actually done what he says he has done, because you will have to document everything that you do and submit your documented work experience to ACCA, or if it's not ACCA, it's a local professional body, you'll have to document and submit the work that you have done, the proof, the evidence for the work that you have done to your professional body. And that work, that proof of work done, has to be signed off and authorized by someone who was overlooking you, who was actually overseeing you and making sure that you're getting the necessary knowledge. So that person is called the workplace mentor. The knowledge you get has to be documented, and as you document it, please, because under non-accredited employers, you'll actually be the one responsible to make sure you're getting the right knowledge. You have to make sure that you are getting as much varied experience as possible. Don't spend 3 years working in one department doing the same job, because you won't qualify as a chartered accountant. So you need to vary your what? You need to vary your experience. Today work in the management accounting department producing management reports. In the next day go work in the financial accounting department, producing external reports, doing financial statements. The other time go work in the internal audit department, making sure that you are actually making sure everything is still going on in the organization. The other time go work you have to vary your experience. If it means changing employers several times until you meet your entire 3-year practical experience requirement, do that. Don't be afraid to change employers, because otherwise you will not qualify as a chartered accountant and you'll be in trouble because you won't get the benefits that come with being a chartered accountant. So once you have documented your work, the work that you have done, and the workplace mentor certifies it, then you submit that to ACCA or your local professional body, and they will say, okay, we are happy with your practical experience that you got. You met the performance objective requirements. We are good. So you have education, you have training. Does it mean you're good to go? Not yet. You need the last leg, which is ethics. So ethics is trained throughout your studies. Now, from the first year of your studies to the last year of your studies, you'll be taught ethics, how to behave as an accountant. You'll be taught how to keep up with integrity, how to maintain your integrity as an accountant. Because when you get to the workplace, we need to trust you as the users of the information that you'll be providing, as the consumers of the output of your work. We need to trust that the person who produced this work is actually, truthful. The person who produced this work, we can actually rely on their work. We can trust them. So you need to be trained in integrity. You need to be trained in keeping confidentiality, because you need to be able to show that you need to be able to know that what we have discussed with you as a client, a client accountant, our client accountant relationship has to be confidential. You don't want to go around telling people how much your employees get, how much they get in salaries, how you compete as the organization, the plans of the organization. We need to be sure that, because you'll be exposed to the most critical decisions and the most critical secrets of the organization, you need to be able to keep everything that you get during your employment as confidential as possible. So we'll be able to teach you throughout your studies and training at least. We need to make sure that you uphold confidentiality, and you need to make sure that competence and due care. With accountants, you don't stop learning when you are done with the education part of things. You have to be a lifelong learner. And to be a lifelong learner, you have to do your continual professional development to keep up with competence. Like I said earlier, when we talked about whether the local body will work with the international body, we said one of the things why they work with international bodies is to keep up with the changes in the accounting, in the environment, in the industry. So you need to be sure that when you're dealing with the cryptocurrencies, for example, you know how you have to account for those transactions. And now crypto is coming in after you're qualified. How do you do it? So you have to be able to and be confident that this person, even though he was qualified 10 years ago, 20 years ago, is still relevant in today's environment. And how do you do that? Competence and due care, which is part of the ethical requirements that you need to fulfill. And again, the professional behavior. As an accountant, you need to behave and be seen to behave like someone who understands the position that you uphold. You need to inspire confidence in the way you do things, even in your personal life, even when you're not at work. We need to see you behaving like a professional. So these are just some of the principles. Of course, every professional body has its own code of ethics that you need to abide by, but generally, this is what will be required of you. And you have to be able to prove that you're a person of integrity. You have to be able to prove that you can keep what is confidential. You have to be able to prove that you behave professionally and that you are competent and will uphold competence throughout your career. And how do you prove that? Before we give you award to a certificate as a chartered accountant, you need to sit down and write what we call an ethics test, a professional ethics test. Normally a 3-hour test, where basically you are going to be given scenarios of what people normally encounter in the workplace, and you'll be asked how you deal with that. And once we are happy with your responses and everything, then we'll be happy that this person understands what ethics is about and is an ethical person. This person has done his training, we are happy, he meets the performance objective requirements. This person, we are happy, has got necessary education, and most importantly, has been paying their subscriptions every year on time. Then we can award you a chartered accountant. And yippee, you're now a chartered accountant. Being a chartered accountant, remember 3 things: education, training, ethics. If you don't do any one of those, you cannot be a chartered accountant. And being a chartered accountant, remember, is a personal responsibility. It's not always that you'll be able to work in accredited employers, you'll be able to go to college. Sometimes you have to push yourself and do it personally or get private tutors. Sometimes you have to work for non-accredited employers, and ultimately you have to be able to uphold the ethics and the code of ethics for the professional body that you are registered with. That is all from me for today, everybody. If you need any further clarification and everything, just comment on the